My name is Dean Cullinane. I'm 20 years old, half Irish, half German. I was born in Ireland. I was born and raised amongst a Catholic family. Always went to Sunday church and that. And then we came over here when I was 8. And we came over here because my mum was being abused. And so we were forced to run away from our home. And so, you know, we came over and everything was cool. I was going to a Catholic school, you know, as you do if you're Catholic, you go to a Catholic school normally. And I started to see that there was something wrong with church. I started to see that the Catholic Church is, something wasn't right personally for me. So basically, around the age of 13, 14, I left the church. And, you know, truthfully, I was only, like, if I was in the church, you know, I would be there, like, playing my Game Boy or something. Like, I was never really there for God. And the church kind of, like, I always believed God was real, but the church kind of made me think, like, you know, if this is it, then God can't be real. If this is it, if this is all it's about. And so I left the church and I developed like a hatred for God. I developed a hatred, a deep, deep, deep hatred for any kind of father figure. And the earliest memory I have of my life, I was 3 years old. I remember it like it was yesterday. And I was hearing noises in my room. And so I was sleeping. It was early morning hours, and I came out of the room and I could hear screaming. And I know that voice, that's my mum's voice. And so I walked towards the front room and the light was on. And I opened the door slowly and I peeked in. And I seen this man on top of my mum and he was stabbing her in her leg. And I didn't know what to do. And I started crying. And my mum seen me and she started crying. And then, you know, I ran back into my room. And a few years later, my mum told me that the man that was stabbing her in the leg, that was my dad. And that's kind of where it all stemmed from. Like, that's why, if you heard Sydney's testimony, you know, we tend to hear it a lot these days, that, you know, women get they get raped and that. People, you never hear the person talk, the person that's the result of the rape. You know, you hear about the woman a lot, but when you grow up and you know that your life is a result of rape, and when for your whole life you feel like you're a mistake. I grew up with that feeling, and my brother's dad came along and I hated him. My dad was never around, so I hated him. My mum, when we came over here, she was going out with another guy and I hated him. That didn't last long. But then my mum got married and I hated this guy. I hated him with a passion. And this father figure hatred, it made me hate God, it made me resent God. And so, you know, I left the church and that. You know, if anyone knows me from back in the day, you know, all I done was play football. That's all I done. It was my life. And so I met some people, you know, playing football and that. And these guys, these were like, you know, road guys. And like, I'll be honest, I wasn't one of those guys. I wasn't like a road guy. But the older I got, I would start to get more involved. And so when you're with certain types of people, you get peer pressured into doing certain types of stuff. And I got to the place where I was becoming such a person that I was having thoughts of doing the stuff that was the reason why I'm here, if that makes any sense. I was hanging around with people that were affecting me in such a way. And you get peer pressured into doing a lot of stuff. And so, you know, one of the things that, you know, was always hanging over my head was like, you know, Dean, you haven't really been with any girls. Like, you know, you've been with girls, but you haven't been with girls. And so one night, I said, you know, I've had enough. And I went out looking for a certain type of girl, and I found a certain type of girl, and I took her back home. And all my friends were there. I told them to be there. All my friends were there, and I brought her inside like she was some kind of trophy. And then things started to get deep. I was in a relationship that was, you know, purely based on sex, and we both knew it. And she started to develop feelings. You know, girls tend to do that a lot. Us men, we're more drawn back, you know, where we restrict ourselves to that kind of stuff. But women are very emotional. And so she was getting feelings, and so I kind of just said, you know, that's it for me, man. You know, I'm bailing out, innit? And that's the thing about sin. If you think that you can run away from it by yourself, you know, you're being deceived, because you can't. You can't. And so I had broke up with this girl, and I kept going back. And I wasn't going back because, you know, because I thought she was pretty. I was going back to get what I needed to get. And it got to the point where I started to get so focused on looking at girls in a certain way. I was losing myself, man. I was losing myself. I was changing. And so I cried out to God in my bath. I was in the bath and the shower was on, and I was sitting down and the lights weren't on. It was pitch dark. And I cried out to God. I said, you know, if you're actually there, if you're there and you care for me like a father is meant to care for his son, if you care for me like a father is meant to care for his son, not like how my dad cared for me, if you care for me like a father is meant to care for his son, then you need to show me that. And so the next day I was on Facebook, and my ex, not the one that I was doing foolishness with, my ex, you know, she spoke to me. It was just, you know, the hi, bye, how you doing thing. And then out of the blue, you know, she said she was gonna call me. And like for a good few months, I was going out with this girl that I was, you know, doing foolishness with. We'd never spoke on the phone because there was you don't need to get to know someone if you don't want to know them, if you just want to use them. And so she called me and we spoke all night on the phone, and she was telling me, you know, how God has been doing stuff for her life. And I was like, you know, oh, him again. You know, well, like it's great that he's doing stuff for you. But meanwhile, I'm growing up with these feelings and I'm being left to rot. And I've never had a father. I've never had someone to come into my life and say, Dean, this is how you're meant to do things. I've always just been by myself. And so we got speaking more. And we started, we entered into a relationship. But she was very firm. She was like, I don't know what you were doing before, but, if there was anything, it's not happening this time. And I was like, okay, cool. And, part of me wanted to believe her. But part of me was like, Dean, don't forget who you are, man. Don't forget, who you've grown up with. Anyways, we went a month and her parents found out. And we didn't tell her parents, because she's Christian, her parents are Christian and that. Parents found out and they wanted to meet me. And, I'd never done the whole parent meeting thing because, why would I? Met her parents. And her dad said to me, Dean, if you really want to get to know our daughter, then, you should go to church with her once because, her life is based around church. In my head, I was thinking, okay, so if I can go through one church session, then I've done what they want and I'm good to go. Like, to carry on a relationship without their input. So I went to the church. It was a Friday night, about 7:30. It was at Woolsden Seventh-day Adventist Church. They were Seventh-day Adventists. And I went there and I was thinking like, what, an hour left? Because it wasn't nothing special, if I'm going to be honest. Like, it was just, music and, like waving your hands and that. And I was like, I see this on TV all the time. Like, if this is what, God, if this is what you're trying to show me, then come the end of this hour, I'm gone, man. And then people started, they started passing a microphone around to give testimonies. And they started to talk as if God was real. Like, not, up there, but he was real, he was in their life. They started to say, oh yeah, I was in this situation and, I said, I'm just gonna trust God, and then it worked. And then, I spent the whole night thanking him, and me and my family were bringing in the Sabbath. Didn't have a clue what the Sabbath was. Bringing in the Sabbath with the family, it's great to feel God's presence. And in my head, I'm thinking, you nutters, there's no way God is real. Like, if you knew what was going on in my life, you wouldn't be running around saying, Sabbath. Like, be real. But I felt something there that I can't explain, because the more they started to talk about how real God was, the more I kind of started to think it myself. And I had this thing inside me, I don't know what it was, but it told me that very same night, it was like, Dean, you're going to be a Seventh-day Adventist, innit? And I left that place so confused. And I got home and I called my girlfriend and I was like, that I haven't really experienced that before. But it wasn't proof that God was real. So, they suggested Bible study and I was like, cool, give me what you got. We studied Revelation and Daniel. Now, I didn't have a clue what that even meant. But we studied it, and the second time we studied Daniel 2. And my girlfriend's sister broke down the prophecy, and the whole Nebuchadnezzar's dream, and that broke it down. And the moment that the study finished, I was like, that's it, God is real? That has to be it. Like, you can't do all that and not be real. And so I left there, and of the full realization that God is real. Like, I would have been willing, and this is no word of a lie, I would have been willing there and then to give my life to God. Like, to die for God right there. And I got home and things started to go boom. Like, they just dropped. I didn't tell no one that, what I was going through. But things started to go crazy at home. And, my mum, she wasn't having it. Like things were happening that, it doesn't make sense. Like, there was no reason for them things to happen, but they were happening in the house. There was nothing to provoke the situation, but the situation would arise. Anyways, I knew my mum, she's not supportive of this whole religion thing. As she says it, the church thing. She's not on it. And I knew that, and like, I love my mum more than, I love my mum. And I was so scared of being some kind of disappointment to her because of things that I was going through. Now, when I was in school, and in Catholic school, I got an A star in my RE GCSE. I got 98 out of 100. But I didn't dare put that on my CV in case someone thought that I wanted to be some kind of priest. I said, there's no way, that's because I was ashamed of everything that had anything to do with God. And so I grew up thinking, if anyone finds out that, I'm having Bible study, what are you going to think about me? That same dean that... So I said, I need to get myself a Bible. And I looked online and, I found the cheapest one I could get from Amazon. And the moment I bought it, I realized that it's going to be delivered to my house. And if my parents see it, they're going to know. They're going to know that I've got the Bible in the house, and they're going to switch. And I don't blame my parents for this at all. Not one bit. I love them to bits. But they didn't understand. But anyways, I took all the time off work and I waited for the Bible to come. And the moment it came, I was sitting on the stairs and I seen it, the postman walked past the door, and then he came back and he knocked, and I had to sign for it, and I ran upstairs with the Bible in my hand, fully in the package, and I put it under my mattress. And then I ran back downstairs and pretended everything was cool. And I was so scared of them finding out. But I couldn't help it. I was craving God. And so I would, every night, my brother, he likes to read books sometimes before he goes to sleep. And he's got this little light that you attach onto the book and you can bend it to shine onto the words. And I took it, and he knew it was gone. He said, where is it? I was like, I don't know. But I took it and I put it under my mattress as well. And every single night, I would attach it onto me somehow or onto the cover, and I would be under my cover and I would be reading through the Bible, and I would be going over Daniel 2. I would be going over Revelation, and I would be looking for something to cling to, something else, something more. I was craving it. And then one day I was at work and I got home and my mum was just there, and she was like, Dean, you got a Bible? Because my mum decided to change my sheets. Now my mum doesn't do that. I was 19. Why would my mum change my sheets? But for some reason, maybe she was just feeling extra kind, but she changed the sheets and she found the Bible, and she was like, you got a Bible? In a kind of half disappointed, half what on earth is this kind of way. You got a Bible? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, why would you get a Bible of all things? Like, if out of all the books you could choose, you get a Bible. And I was just like, yeah. Feeling disappointed in myself. I was like, yeah, I got it. And I was shook, man. There was a fear in me that I don't know why I was scared, but I was scared. And so I would lie to my mum about going to church. I wouldn't tell her that I was going, until the point where I was finding out more and more that God is real, and yet I was then finding excuses to not go to church. I was then saying stuff like, I called my girlfriend and I said, look, I'm not coming to church no more. I'm not coming no more. Things are getting too hard and it's because of church. And the next day I sat on my bed, with a little wallpaper scraper. I told her I had to scrape the wallpaper. And I heard a voice, man. It's clear as day. Clear as day, I heard a voice. It was telling me to go to church. I didn't know what it was at the time. I know what it was now. I know who it was now. But it was telling me to go to church. But I was still so scared, man. I was still so scared. So I ran down, I put on my football kit. I put on my football kit because I knew if on a weekday night, if I looked like I was going to some kind of funeral, my parents would clock. And I couldn't have that, man. So I put my football kit and I brought my bag and I said, Mum, I'm going football tonight. And I ran outside. I ran down the road behind the bush. I got undressed and I put on my church clothes and I sprinted to the bus stop. I took my brother's Oyster card, sprinted to the bus stop. Got on the bus, got on the train, got on another bus. Started walking and got to the church that I knew that my girlfriend was at, and her sister and her friends. I knew they were there. And so my heart was racing, man, and I walked in and the church was packed out. It was a campaign, it was packed. It was so packed that there was people at the back, people behind, and people, standing around the sides. And I walked in and I knew everyone could see me. It was the middle of service. And I looked for my girlfriend and I seen her. And there was one space. There was a space there. I can still see it now. There was one chair free and there was people standing at the back. And I was like, what is this? And I slowly started walking. I swear to God, it was the longest walk of my life. And I walked to this chair and I sat down and I pulled out my Bible. And it was a campaign, Sean Pickard and Andrew Fuller. And they preached their heart out, man. I swear they preached. I was converted there and then. That's when I gave my life to Christ. A couple of weeks later, I made the decision to get baptized. But this was something that had to be done publicly. And so I went home and the next day I told my mum and my stepdad to come into the front room. And we sat down and I said, look, I'm gonna get baptized next week. And my mum just said, no. I was like, what do you mean no? She was like, no, you're not. She's like, I don't care what you say, there's no way you're getting baptized. Like, you're a Catholic. Why would you get baptized again to another church? Like, you're just doing this because of your girlfriend. You're just doing this, all this nonsense. I prayed there and then, right there in front of them. And I said, God, man, you need to get me through this. This is something else. And by the end of the conversation, my mum said that she was gonna come to the baptism. She said, at about 11 o'clock, there's no way you're getting baptized. And then by 11:30, she was like, what am I gonna wear? And, Sabbath came, Sabbath day, and my mum was at the baptism, man. The devil was going in on my life that very day. That very day, I almost pulled out. And as they dipped me into the pool, my mum was crying. My mum cried. She didn't even know what it meant to me, but it's something. She cried. I'll never forget that day. God saved my life. He saved me from some ridiculous stuff, man. I was in craziness. I was getting deeper and deeper into craziness. I was one step away from scamming banks. I was one step away from selling all kinds of nonsense. Jesus Christ saved my life. And people, you hear this all the time, man, like, I don't need God to be good. You need God to be saved. You might not think you need to be saved, but you need to be saved. The fact that you think you don't need to be saved means you definitely need to be saved. This world is crazy, man. This world is evil. And soon enough we're gonna leave. Soon enough we're gonna leave, man. It's not no joke. It's not no joke. There's something about us Christians, man. There's something about us because we tend to get all excited for Christ, Come back from camp meeting, everyone's buzzing. Something happens and, you're back down to where you were before you went. It's like a fire, And the thing about us, man, when you're making a fire, you have to add the coal, you have to add the wood. But the moment you stop, the fire goes out. It's, it's logic. You need to constantly keep topping up the fire in order for it to keep burning. If you stop, and you stop long enough to the point where the fire goes out, do you know how hard it is to get the fire burning again? Because it's just ash now, it's just waste. If you're on a path where you're following God and somehow you come off, I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna be super tough to come back on the path. But I'll say this straight up, man. The stuff that I was in, watching pornography every day of my life, speaking to girls in such a way, masturbation, violence, anger problems, growing up knowing that I, as a child, am a result of a rape. God took every single one of these things and made me the person who I am right now. God took every single one of these things that made me feel so dirty and filthy and like I was some kind of, disgrace to my family. He took all of those things and he said, Dean, I'm going to give you a new life. I've got a new life now. I've got new friends. Clive, Leif, Daniel, Hannah, Roxy. I've got a family. I've still got my old family. And I love them more than anything. But God has given me something more. God has given me a purpose now. God has given me something. I can't even explain it, man. I can't explain it. Like, we would need to do a couple more testimonies. I can't explain it. How can you explain a king in a perfect world coming to give his life so that you, any guy that, can't stop doing this and that, he comes to give his life so you, that don't make sense. But it's God's love. And if there's anyone out there that thinks God isn't real, you need to get your fire burning, man. There's more to life than, sex, drugs and rock and roll. There's more to life than studying at uni and then going partying on the weekend. There's more to life. You're called for something much better than that. As Christians, we're called for something much better than that. I know the sins that I was stuck in are the very same sins that, many Christians are stuck in today. But we've got a mission. We've got a real mission. Clive, Leif, you know what I'm talking about, man. We've got a real mission to go and save souls. And that's what this is about. That's what I've given my life to. I've given my life to God. I've given my life to the fact that I don't care if I don't have a job. I couldn't care less if I'm eating rice and beans for the rest of my life. I couldn't care less if I'm living in, a one-bedroom flat that has the toilet to the left and the kitchen to the right. I couldn't care less. We need to get serious, man. We need to choose God. We need to choose Jesus, man. Jesus saves.